There is a shrub growing along roadsides from Maine to Georgia right now. Its small red berries contain 17 times more lycopene than tomatoes, more antioxidants than blueberries. It pulls nitrogen from thin air and converts it into free fertilizer forever. It needs no irrigation, no pesticides, no care whatsoever. A single plant produces up to 8 pounds of fruit every year. And in Ohio, Massachusetts, and a growing list of states, it is now illegal to sell. The government spent decades planting millions of them across America. They paid farmers to grow it. They distributed seedlings from state nurseries. They called it a miracle for degraded land. Then in 2023, they made selling it a crime. This is autumn olive, Elaeagnus umbellata, and the campaign to erase it reveals exactly what happens when a free food source threatens the bottom line of chemical dependence. Welcome to Nature Hidden Beneath. If these stories matter to you, subscribe now and leave a comment telling us which forbidden plant you want us to investigate next. Hit the bell so you never miss what they tried to make us forget. The archive opens in the mountain villages of the Himalayas. For thousands of years, families living at elevations above 2,000 meters knew this plant by its silvery leaves. In China, Korea, and Japan, the berries were not a nuisance. They were medicine. Traditional healers used the fruit to treat liver disorders and digestive problems. They brewed tea from the flowers to support heart health. The seeds were prepared for lung ailments. The oil extracted from the fruit reduced inflammation. In harsh mountain terrain where temperatures swing from 43 to 55 degrees Celsius, where soil is rocky and rainfall unpredictable, this plant survived when others failed. It grows in any pH from 5.5 to 9.5. It tolerates drought, pollution, and nutrient-poor ground. It asks for nothing and gives everything. Picture a grandmother in a remote Himalayan village. The rice crop has failed. The wheat is sparse. Along the edges of the terraced fields, the silverberry shrubs hang heavy with crimson fruit. She harvests them by the handful. Her family survives another season. For 2,000 years, this was not a weed. It was insurance against starvation. Then, in 2001, modern science caught up with ancient wisdom. At the USDA Agricultural Research Service facility in Beltsville, Maryland, a horticulturist named Ingrid Fordham tried the berries during routine fieldwork. She noticed the intense red pigment. Her colleague, Beverly Clevidence, who headed the phytonutrients laboratory, offered to analyze them for carotenoids. What they found stunned the research team. The berries contained between 15 and 54 milligrams of lycopene per 100 grams of fresh fruit. Raw tomatoes contain about 3 milligrams per 100 grams. Autumn olive berries were up to 17 times higher. Fordham later recalled that they were astounded at what they found. Lycopene is the compound that makes tomatoes red. It is also one of the most powerful antioxidants known to science. Researchers have linked it to reduced risk of prostate cancer, lower rates of heart disease, and protection against cellular damage. 80 to 90% of the American lycopene intake comes from tomatoes and tomato products. But here was a wild shrub producing concentrations that no commercial tomato could match. The discoveries kept coming. In 2019, researchers in Korea published a study in Nutrition Research and Practice. They fed autumn olive berry extract to diabetic mice. The results showed that the berries reduced both fasting and postprandial blood glucose levels. The extract inhibited alpha-glucosidase, the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates into sugar, at 92% of the effectiveness of acarbose. Acarbose is a pharmaceutical drug prescribed for type 2 diabetes. A wild berry matching the performance of a prescription medication. In 2020, Italian researchers at the University of Turin analyzed the phytochemical fingerprint of the fruit. They found total polyphenolic content of 325 milligrams per 100 grams, anthocyanin content of nearly 195 milligrams per 100 grams. These numbers rival blueberries, raspberries, and cherries. The berries also contain vitamins A, C, and E, essential fatty acids, flavonoids, minerals including potassium, calcium, and magnesium. A 2012 study by Katak, published in the Journal of Medicinal Plants Research, found 27.8 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams. Pakistani researchers documented hepatoprotective effects. The fruit protects the liver, it protects the kidneys, it fights oxidative stress at the cellular level. These are not folk claims from an old herbal almanac. These are peer-reviewed studies published in respected scientific journals. The USDA confirmed it. Universities across 3 continents confirmed it. The most concentrated source of lycopene in the temperate world was growing wild along American highways. But the berries are only half the story. Beneath the soil, something even more valuable was happening. Autumn olive belongs to a group called actinorhizal plants. Its roots form a symbiotic relationship with bacteria called Frankia. These bacteria live in specialized nodules on the root system. They perform a process called nitrogen fixation, pulling nitrogen gas directly from the atmosphere and converting it into ammonia. This is the same form of nitrogen found in synthetic fertilizers like ammonium nitrate, except this plant makes it for free, forever. In 1989, researchers led by Pashka studied autumn olive interplanted with black walnut trees. They estimated the shrubs contributed as much as 90 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per year. That translates to roughly 80 pounds per acre, every single year, without any input whatsoever. Now consider the economics. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer costs approximately 60 cents per pound at current wholesale prices. 80 pounds times 60 cents per pound equals $48 per acre in free fertilizer annually. Multiply that across the millions of acres of degraded farmland, abandoned mine sites, and eroding hillsides across America. We are talking about billions of dollars in fertilizer that farmers would never need to buy. Billions of dollars that chemical companies would never collect. A farmer in Ohio looks at his depleted cornfield. The topsoil is thin and the yields are dropping. He has 2 choices. He can buy bags of synthetic nitrogen every spring, year after year, forever. Or he can plant a shrub that manufactures its own nitrogen from thin air, produces edible superfruit, and requires 0 maintenance. The chemical industry has a very strong opinion about which choice he should make. Now here is where the story turns. Autumn olive was introduced to America in 1830. It arrived as an ornamental plant, prized for its silvery foliage and fragrant flowers. For over a century, it remained in small numbers in gardens and arboretums. Then the Dust Bowl happened. In the 1930s, decades of aggressive plowing had stripped the Great Plains of native prairie grasses. When drought hit, there was nothing to hold the soil. Winds lifted millions of tons of topsoil into the sky. Black blizzards buried farms from Texas to the Dakotas. Families fled west in caravans of desperation. In 1935, Congress established the Soil Conservation Service. Its mission was to stop America from blowing away. Researchers began testing plants that could stabilize soil quickly. They needed species that grew fast, tolerated poor conditions, and required minimal care. In the 1940s, the Soil Conservation Service began studying autumn olive. It passed every test. By the 1950s, state and federal agencies were actively promoting it. They planted it along highways from Pennsylvania to Illinois. They used it to reclaim strip mines in Appalachia. They established it on dam embankments and reservoir edges. In 1963, the USDA officially released a cultivar called Cardinal for commercial propagation. Picture a government agent in 1960 driving a pickup truck down a rural road in West Virginia. In the truck bed are hundreds of autumn olive seedlings. He stops at farms along the way, handing them out to landowners. Plant these on your eroded hillsides, he tells them. They will stop the soil from washing away. They will feed the deer and the songbirds. They will improve your land. And he was right. The plants did exactly what they promised. They stabilized eroding slopes. They fed wildlife through the winter. They improved degraded soil with their nitrogen-fixing roots. They required no irrigation, no fertilizer, no maintenance. They spread on their own as birds ate the fruit and deposited seeds across the landscape. They succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. And that success became their crime. By the 2000s, the same characteristics that made autumn olive valuable were rebranded as threats. Fast-growing became aggressive. Hardy became invasive. Self-spreading became uncontrollable. In 2006, Massachusetts designated it an invasive species. Sale and propagation became prohibited. Other states followed. In 2018, Ohio passed regulations banning the sale of 38 invasive plant species. Autumn olive was on the list. After a 5-year grandfathering period, the ban took full effect on January 1, 2023. South Carolina added 3 species of Elaeagnus to its state plant pest list in 2024. The USDA Forest Service now classifies it as a Category 1 invasive species. It is prohibited on all National Forest System lands. Multiple states restrict its transport and sale. It is now illegal to import at the federal level. The official justification is that it outcompetes native plants, that it changes soil chemistry, that it spreads uncontrollably through bird dispersal. Consider what those complaints actually mean. It outcompetes native plants because it produces free nitrogen that native plants cannot match. It changes soil chemistry by making soil more fertile. It spreads uncontrollably because wildlife eat the nutritious fruit and deposit seeds in their droppings. The plant was designed by evolution to do exactly these things. The government selected it precisely because it does these things. Now, doing these things is the crime. Follow the money. When autumn olive takes over a site, land managers are instructed to remove it. The recommended methods involve repeated applications of glyphosate and triclopyr. These are herbicides manufactured by chemical companies. A landowner in Indiana finds autumn olive spreading on her back 40 acres. She calls the county extension office. They tell her it is invasive, and they tell her she needs to spray it with herbicides. They give her a list of approved contractors. She pays hundreds of dollars per acre for chemical treatment. She pays again the following year because the roots resprout. She pays again and again. The herbicide manufacturers collect revenue on every application. The native plant nurseries sell her approved replacement species. The control contractors bill for their labor. Everyone profits except the landowner. The land itself loses a nitrogen-fixing, wildlife-feeding, erosion-controlling plant that required no money and no permission to grow. The pattern is familiar. A plant that provides free benefits is systematically eliminated. In its place, we install systems that require constant purchases. White clover was removed from lawn seed so companies could sell nitrogen fertilizer and broadleaf herbicides. Perennial grains were replaced with annuals so farmers would buy new seed every year. Mesquite forests were cleared for cattle operations that degraded the land the trees had protected. Autumn olive is the latest chapter in a very old story. What cannot be owned cannot be sold. What cannot be sold must be criminalized. But something is shifting. Across Appalachia and the Midwest, foragers are rediscovering what grows along their roadsides. They harvest the berries in autumn when the fruit turns from silver to deep red. They make jams and jellies. They dry the berries for tea, press and process them into fruit leather that children love, and ferment them into wine. The taste is sweet and tart when the fruit is fully ripe. The astringency fades as sugars develop. Each berry contains a single seed that can be swallowed or spat out. A family in rural Pennsylvania fills buckets in a single afternoon from shrubs growing on an abandoned mining site. They process the berries in their kitchen, and they store jars of deep red jam in their pantry. They have preserved what might be the most concentrated source of lycopene available in the temperate world. They paid nothing. They asked no permission. They broke no law because they harvested the fruit. They did not sell it. Permaculture practitioners are questioning the invasive label. They point out that native ecosystems no longer exist across most of the eastern United States. They ask whether a nitrogen-fixing shrub that feeds wildlife and stabilizes soil is truly worse than a lawn sprayed with chemicals. They ask who benefits from the distinction between native and invasive. They ask why a plant is called invasive when it succeeds without human control, while natives that require constant intervention and spending are called desirable. Climate change is intensifying. Droughts are more frequent. Soils are more degraded. The industrial food system depends on synthetic nitrogen manufactured using fossil fuels, and that system is vulnerable. Autumn olive does not care about supply chains. It does not need natural gas to fix nitrogen. It does not require irrigation during drought. It waits in the hedgerows and the highway margins. It produces fruit year after year. It improves the soil it grows in. It fed Himalayan villages through famine. It could feed American families through whatever comes next. If we stop poisoning it, if we stop criminalizing it, if we remember what the government knew in 1950 and chose to forget by 2023. When you see those red berries glowing in the autumn sun along a country road, understand what you are looking at. You are seeing free lycopene at 17 times the concentration of tomatoes. You are seeing free nitrogen fixed from thin air. You are seeing wildlife habitat in a landscape stripped of diversity. You are seeing drought resistance in an age of climate chaos. And you are seeing a plant that your government spent decades planting, promoting, and distributing before they decided it worked too well. The question is not whether autumn olive is useful. The science settled that decades ago. The question is who gets to decide what you are allowed to grow on land you own. If this video opened something for you, subscribe to Nature Hidden Beneath and hit the bell. Every like and share breaks the programming. The next video goes live soon.